Chapter 2 of Magnolia. Chapter 2. Okay. The masquerade. Walking up to the front doors of the hotel, Magnolia felt her whole body fill with anticipation. "Ooh," Magnolia whispered as she and her family stepped into the hall that led to the ballroom of the posh hotel that Vanity had chosen for the event. The moment their coats were handed over to the coat check, a scent of delicious caramel apples wafted through the air with promise of cookies and cake. The scent was enveloping Magnolia and her parents like a warm hug. It was time to enter the ballroom and find out what lay within. Smells did have a way of transporting you to memories. The previous year's ballroom theme flashed into Magnolia's mind. Last year's scent was vanilla, and everything was white. Many tiny vanilla cakes and vials of vanilla perfume were handed out to all the guests. The ballroom that year was adorned in white twinkling lights as the presence of lilies and white roses as accented the tables and were incorporated into the green garlands on the doorways as vanilla candles cast a warm glow on the tables. Dry ice was in place around the room, giving the illusion of wonder and intrigue with its smoke, while tight-rope walkers performed. Another delight was the bubbles that floated through the room as the guests danced and swayed and ate, listening to the band dressed like Roman toga attire, all in white and playing upbeat music. White buckets of white and shiny reflective confetti were dropped over the crowd at midnight, and it was a perfect dream. "Magnolia, hurry up and get in here. The show is going to start, and we need to get to our table and find our seats," Vanity called frantically, as Magnolia dilly-dallied her way along the hallway. "Sorry, I'm on my way," she called back to her mother, entering the doorway that was wide open, ready to receive her. Inside the ball, it was draped with red, orange, and brown thin streamers that hung around the ceiling, mixed with green greenery adorned with apples hanging down. There were chandeliers that sparkled with their crystal and beautiful lights. There were large circus wagons filled with ice, and pitchers of fruit juices and champagnes were chilled. Next to those were small scaled hot air balloons that held glasses already made up of pretty martini glasses filled with drinks. The men tending these had on incredible circus-like attire, red and black striped button-up shirts with yellow suspenders and black and gold striped pants with golden top hats lined with red silk. Lennon wanted a drink upon entering, so he went up to one of the bartenders and was handed one of the mysteriously filled martini glasses with a sparkling red tint and a cherry in the bottom of it. When Vanity noticed this, she sighed, but also had a hint of amusement in her eyes. She quickly herded Lennon and Magnolia to their table, seeing that Owen and Mirza were already sitting there waiting for them. "Greetings, family. We saved you a seat," Owen teased as Vanity looked at her son and laughed. Vanity sat down next to Owen and Mirza on his right, and next sat Lennon, then Magnolia. "My son is a comedian. We are glad you saved us this seating, since it was your father who paid for this table. You both look smashing, by the way," Vanity replied, laughing. Mirza and Owen briefly got up as Owen twirled Mirza quickly, then they sat back down, kissing her briefly on the cheek. Owen grabbed his own mysterious martini and clinked glasses with Lennon. Then the two of them sipped their drinks. Magnolia took in the splendor of the room, seeing that each table was round and wooden, draped in light brown, red, and cream-colored tablecloths that were layered on top of each other. Bright red roses mixed with marigolds and peony flowers were in clear dark glass vases in the middle of the tables, draped in brown twine in water. There were also shiny red glass apples on long sticks that were arranged in the flower bouquets. On either side of the flowers there were tapered candles in the caramel brown and red, lighting a pretty glow on the table. In front of each red-colored plate there was placed on a golden plate liner sat a wooden place card that held a piece of paper that had each guest's name on it in pretty script. Very lovely and expensive-looking cutlery was arranged nicely for each person. Laying across each red-colored plate was a menu in a cream color, lined with light brown, skinny and long. On top of that was a red linen napkin. A familiar smile was noticed by Magnolia out of the corner of her eye. It was Audrey, sitting with her family Audrey was wearing a long, lovely, fluffy, pale pink ball gown and nice pink satin shoes. Her light brown hair in soft curls on the top of her head, secured with pink and golden jeweled clips. Her mask was pink and pretty feathers and showing off her pretty chocolate brown eyes. Magnolia was just about to get up and go and say hello when Vanity shot her daughter a daggered look in her sharp reddish brown eyes, saying, "Don't you dare." Magnolia grimaced, then settled down in her chair with a pout. Audrey saw this and mouthed the words, "It's okay," then blew her friend a kiss. Yeah, that's what it says. Blew her friend a kiss. Then slightly lifted Magnolia's spirits, and she waved back. The room quieted as a bright spotlight went out onto the stage that had a floor-to-ceiling red curtain held close, and had a man with a microphone standing there in a gorgeous outfit. This man was dressed up like a ringmaster at the circus, who had to be the master of ceremonies for the evening. His costume was in bright purple and orange, with a dark purple top hat lined in orange. He was wearing an orange silk mask and had a very joyful look on his youthful face. His eyes were brown, and he was very tall. He also had a mustache. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our annual masquerade ball, and don't you all look magnificent? Let the games begin," he exclaimed loudly. He lifted his arm, taking off his top hat, threw it up in the air, and catching it. The crowd cheered and erupted into applause as he took a grand bow. He stepped aside as a giant red velvet curtain behind him began to rise, revealing a big band all dressed in zoot suits, and the room was filled with the sound of energetic music. Two couples in full swing dance outfits, one in red and white polka dot, the other in gray and red, began swing dancing. Both ladies had their hair in pin curls and swishy ponytails, and the men with short, perfect hair and smiles. It wasn't long before both men flipped their dance partners right up into the air and caught them. It was incredibly lively and entertaining to watch, and the crowd clapped and cheered. Magnolia grabbed a glass that had been delivered to the table from the ice wagons, and it was her turn to taste the mysterious martinis. A perfect blend of sweet apple on her tongue. "Quite the opening act, don't you think, Father?" Magnolia asked her father casually while she took another sip of her drink. Vanity was looking at her daughter with disdain. The reason for this was the fact that Magnolia was now resting her half-empty glass in her lap, ready to spill at any moment. The thought of its spilling was amusing to her as she tried to imagine what her mother would do. She both watched Vanity's gaze with a smile and an edge of fear. Keeping her glass in her lap just a moment longer, watching her mother, Magnolia's glass lingered. Then, when she felt that it had been there long enough, she lifted it back up to her lips and drank the rest of her martini. It was so good that she motioned for the waiter, who was carrying a few of these drinks on a tray, and he placed one of them in front of her and took her empty glass. This made Vanity relax, and there was a smile of victory that her daughter had not done that again, but took a sip that placed her full drink back on the table. Lennon distracted his wife by nuzzling her with his nose on her shoulder, and then he answered his daughter's question. "Yes, such talented dancers, my dear," he replied, not looking at me in Magnolia's direction, but at Vanity. Then he said, "Vannikins, don't you agree?" Looking at her, he took another sip from his third glass of martini. Vendy smiled her sickeningly sweet smile, then answered, "Splendid. Cheers, darling. Where did—" Vendy started as she noticed that two people were now standing up on the stage. The song had ended, and the dancers in the band had been taken off the stage. When this had finished happening, the master of ceremonies was also standing right next to the couple on the stage, yet the couple were standing outside of the spotlight in the shadows. They were not visible, and everyone had turned to see what was happening. "Hello, everyone. There has been a rumor that something is to be announced. Without further ado, I give you Owen Flynn of Flynn Corp., the son of its founder, Lennon Flynn," the master of ceremonies stated, then handed the microphone to Owen. Friendly applause began around the room as Magnolia's brother stepped into the spotlight in the middle of the stage. The other person was still in the shadow of the spotlight. Thank you so much for being here this evening. On behalf of everyone at Flintcorp for putting everything together and making this night possible. But there is one special woman that needs to be thanked, my mother, Vanity Flynn. She organized this event and did the fundraising to restore the abandoned church that was being converted in that will be converted into a new children's orphanage, Owen said, raising a glass to his mother. A different spotlight found Vanity, and she stood and bowed, and then sat back down, and the spotlight disappeared. Back up on the stage, the mysterious woman on the stage stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight as Owen took her hand. Now, on to my announcement. I am pleased to share that I am very much in love with the woman standing next to me, Owen gushed, with a sparkle in his reddish-brown eyes. Mirza was standing next to him as he basked in her beauty. She wore a blood-red ball gown that went all the way down to the floor, accompanied with a crimson silk cape. Her short, dark brown hair was held back with a beautiful red sequined headband that was jewel-encrusted, and a dark red satin mask covered her lovely brown skin face as her pretty espresso brown eyes shone through. Owen wore a black and red pinstripe suit with a red pocket square with a matching dark red satin mask over his reddish brown eyes. We are happy to announce that Owen began, looking lovingly towards Mirza. She then pulled the microphone close to her mouth and said, ever so excitedly, "We're engaged!" As soon as she did this, she showed the room her hand, revealing the giant diamond on her finger. It sparkled so brilliantly under the spotlight, the room exploded into a round of loud cheers and applause. Owen dipped Mirza into a romantic, passionate kiss. Then the two of them raced off the stage. No one really noticed that during this that the red curtain had been closed. Two chairs were brought up onto the stage, and two ladies came up, one playing a cello and other a flute. This music was signaling the dinner being served. Circus performers started walking around the room, one juggling fire batons and the other with silver rings and moving them in a way that was ethereal. Two men dressed brightly, walking around on stilts, dancing between the tables. Two women were sitting on tall platforms, swirling beautiful colored ribbons into the air. Men dressed as circus performers served dinner for all of the tables. Some people received tarragon chicken in white wine and cream sauce, and or beef tenderloin in a wine reduction sauce with asparagus and cauliflower. There were also bowls of Waldorf salad. When everyone had finished eating, the red curtain was lifted again and a new band started to play. It was an Irish band that Lennon no doubt had snuck into the rotation, without his wife knowing. The band was dressed like the Knights of the Round Table, with the lead singer dressed like King Arthur of Camelot. Magnolia looked up at the stage and noticed that the violin player with the silver violin was staring right at her. This man was rather attractive, and Magnolia felt her cheeks begin to warm and pink went into them. She looked away in search of a dessert. Right on cue, the server started to ask everyone what they wanted. Some opted for macaroons, apple tarts drizzled with caramel, and strawberry cream pie. Magnolia eyed a dessert cart that had chocolate cake. Yes, that's what she needed. She stuck another look up at the stage and took a very unladylike gaze at him. He wore his curly brown hair in a fairly short and neat style, as if he were carefully placing his curls right above his eyes. His deep-set blue eyes shone under the stage lights, drawing Magnolia's eyes right to him. He played his silver violin beautifully, as if he were born to play for her right at that very moment. There were now couples dancing out on the dance floor. Magnolia's parents got up and joined the dancers and swayed as the band started playing their second song. It was a sweet love song that Magnolia recognized as an Irish myth of a star-crossed couple. Magnolia and Vanity swayed close in each other's arms, sparkling twinkles in both of their dewy eyes. As much as they were exhausted, they were very in love. Owen and his future bridesmaids were also on the dance floor, slow dancing joyfully, very blissfully enjoying the band. Magnolia saw the chocolate cake that she had desired on one of the server's dessert trays and signaled him to bring it to her. She thanked him. Taking her first bite was utter heavenly chocolate, just what she wanted. A beautiful pull of the silver violin grabbed Magnolia's attention, and was she ever captivated by Mr. Blue Eyes? A smile crept across his gorgeous face. This man was the first real man that Magnolia had ever noticed in all of her 19 years, and he was definitely amazing. When the band finished playing this beautiful song, the guests applauded and the band took a bow. Then they walked off the stage and were replaced by a different band, all wearing proper suits, and the long green sleeves and the song Green Sleeves started playing. Vanity let her husband kiss her on the cheek and on her hand, giving him her most rehearsed look of love. Then Vanity ran off to her socialite friends and began happily chatting with them. Big laughter came from all of them. Leonard went to the lounge area that was set up near the bar, where a few of the husbands of Vanity's friends were drinking, smoking cigars, and talking shop. The song changed to an upbeat sound on the second song of this band, and many of the young people were dancing. Taking her last bite of chocolate cake, Magnolia had her stormy blue eyes cast down on her plate, not paying attention to the world around her. There was a feeling, no, a presence of someone right next to her. Was it Mr. Blue Eyes? Magnolia slowly looked up. A slight disappointment and a mixture of relief hit her, and she exhaled. It was her wonderful friend Audrey, shining her pretty smile, a very welcome appearance. What are you not telling me? Who is that dashing Irish music man, and are you seeing him? He stared at you the entire time he was playing, Audrey asked her many questions with an intense look of anticipation. Magnolia laughed. That's a lot of inquiries. No, we have not ever met. I would like to, though. But you know that I have never met any man, let alone been courageous to actually talk to one as handsome as he is. Magnolia laughed nervously and looked around for another server holding drinks. To her excitement, there was another tray of the mysterious apple martinis, which she took one gladly and started downing it. Audrey watched her friend with interest. She too took a martini, but sipped hers. You must let me take you to him and introduce you, Audrey said with determination, drinking her drink quicker, then placing it down on the table. Magnolia blushed with a deep cherry-colored tinge to her cheeks. No way, I can't. Way too scary. Plus, what would Vanity say? I am not allowed to associate with men that are not pre-approved. You know this. Your parents are so much more reasonable, Magnolia said with a slight voice crack, pleading for her friend not to make her do this. Audrey grabbed her hand, and the two of them got up from the table. Audrey started pulling Magnolia along towards where the violinist was standing and with another Irish fellow, the singer, talking. Magnolia detached her hand from Audrey's grip and walked back over to the table, grabbing her clutch purse, which matched the purple of her dress. Maggie, don't be such a chicken. Where are you going? Audrey called to her, but Magnolia had to escape. She went out into the hallway and found the bathroom. She hid in there for a few minutes after using the facilities, then she left, grabbing her clutch from the counter and ducked into the empty, smaller ballroom that was on the other side of the hall away from the ballroom where the masquerade party was. It was completely empty of people. There were tables set up, a small stage, and a piano that was below the stage. There was a massive chandelier similar to the one in the other ballroom just over the piano, but it wasn't casting light. The lights in the room were not lit, except for a few dim lights coming from the wall sconces around the room. It didn't matter. She just wasn't ready to go back into the other room. Not yet. She found herself sitting down on the velvet-covered piano bench, sliding her fingers along gently across the ivory keys. A tiny burst of sound was now ringing from the piano, and she looked around to see if anyone heard. Her heart started beating faster for a moment, but then slowed as she noticed she was still alone. Magnolia's long purple ball gown was now spilling over the sides of the bench, and it felt so peaceful to be in the room that Magnolia decided to set her purple clutch down onto the top of the piano, and she started to play. It was a song she always played when she sat down at the piano. She didn't even know if it was something that she had taught herself, or if she had just heard, or if she had just heard. But the first thing she ended up playing but was the first thing she ended up playing. That sounds beautiful, spoke an unfamiliar voice from behind her in a pleasant-sounding Irish accent. She abruptly stopped playing, spinning around quickly to look at who had spoken. Her heart felt as if it had jumped into her stomach. There were those familiar blue eyes looking at her, the ones that she thought were mesmerizing. He looked at her with desire, the kind that she had only seen in the silent movies and the one she read about in books. Trying to catch her breath, she breathed in a ragged breath. You scared me, was all that came out of her lips. There was an amusement in his eyes and a slight smirk on his lips that drew her eyes. Sorry about that, miss, he said, then took a step closer. The piece you're playing, who's it by? He asked, now a lot closer. Magnolia's eyes followed his movements and uttered her answer softly. I don't know. It's just something that I always play. She stuttered, moving slightly across from him as he sat down next to her on the piano bench. Well, it is beautiful. Not as beautiful as you, but lovely all the same, the mysterious man told her. She couldn't believe that he just said that. Was this man actually here next to her? Did he like her? Not that. No, that couldn't be that. That couldn't be it. Sorry, my manners have left me. My manners must have left me. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Arthur. Arthur Harvey. I was the one playing the silver violin in the band. We were the ones dressed like we all belong in Camelot, he said, looking at her with a smile, as if he really wanted to touch her. Nice to meet you. I'm Magnolia Flynn, she began to say before being cut off. Flynn, yes, I know. Your father hired my band. He said it reminded him of home when we auditioned. He softly reached his strong hand over to where she had her hand resting on the top of the piano. Fiddling with the zipper on her clutch purse, she tensed for a moment, then she felt her warm hands touch his icy cold fingers. She suddenly wished she had her coat. Their eyes met, blue on blue. Magnolia felt their instant electric connection. Was this real? It was as if fate said, yes, touch him. She didn't know what to do or say, never having ever been this close to a man. This is where she smelled the scent in the air. He had moved his face close to her cheek, lingering there, feeling her energy. His cologne was amazing. He was so handsome that she didn't know how to breathe. You are breathtaking, Arthur said to her, breathing into her hair, and with his other hand he slid his hand down her back. This sent shivers down her that she had never felt, and she closed her eyes, letting go of her other hand that was on the piano. He placed it on her cheek and kissed her the way that made her melt right into it. There was a hunger brewing within both of them that was overwhelming. He deepened the kiss, and the two of them were barely able to control themselves. Pulling away, he had to say, I'm so sorry. That was wrong of me. Please forgive me. Arthur said, his Irish accent thicker, his voice deep and husky. Magnolia shook her head. No, I wanted you to. You didn't do anything wrong, Magnolia said, not wanting him to suddenly get up and leave. Was that it? I didn't want to be inappropriate, but you are just so mouth-watering. May I? He asked. Then, as Magnolia nodded, he asked then as Magnolia nodded silently. Arthur kissed her again, pulled her onto his lap. They stayed like that for a moment, and then he lifted her up onto the piano. Things progressed rather quickly after that. I've never done this before, she breathed as he touched her skin, and he looked at her, not sure if he should proceed. Are you okay? Arthur asked her, then he nodded. Do you want me to stop? He asked, knowing that once things started, he didn't know if he would be able to stop. She shook her head. Enveloped in her lustful emotions, he and her quickly made love. It was beautiful, although brief. Then it was over. Unruffling their clothing, placing all of their garments where they had once belonged, a certain amount of flush was over their faces and skin, and Magnolia looked at him, not knowing what to say. There was no going back now. She had just lost her virginity, and no one could give it back to her. She started to panic inside herself. What had she just done? She needed to get out of there. She had been gone too long. Someone would be coming to look for her. I have to go, Magnolia said, suddenly breaking their silence. He looked at her, not wanting her to go. Wait, don't go, he pleaded, on an alarm ringing through him. He had no idea how to get a hold of her. What if they never crossed paths again? Goodbye, she answered. Not able to stick around, she ran out of the smaller ballroom, tripping over a potted plant. She was grateful that she had remembered to grab her purple clutch purse and opened the door that went into the hallway. Quickly, she looked behind her, then turned toward the masquerade ball. She didn't think she was going to be able to deal with people, so she turned and ran down the hall towards the front doors. It looked cold outside, but she didn't care. Magnolia heard footsteps pounding hard on the tile behind her. She didn't want to look or at who it could be, and she rushed outside. Seeing that her father's town car was outside, she went in, and that is when she looked at the door of the hotel, and it was Arthur. Magnolia! He called out to her. She was glad that he was too late. She watched him get smaller as he rushed back down the stairs, just missing her as the black town car disappeared around the corner, leaving Arthur watching after her. That is chapter 2 of Magnolia. Okay. Have a great day.